How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Nomination, and today we're here with another 2020 NFL offseason preview. This time, it's going to be with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're a pretty intriguing team, and trust me, there's going to be a few obstacles in this video. But have no fear, General Manager JJ Domination is here. Your boy is going to do the best he can with what he's got for this team. And not only is this team with 2 first-round picks, one in the top 10 at, number 9 overall, the other one at number 20 overall. But this team has no cap space. As a matter of fact, they are in the negatives for cap space, and this is going to be a fun video to do. This is a team who, they're a pretty talented bunch, but they're having to hit the reset button. They only had that 1 year where they could have, been a legit Super Bowl contender, played in the AFC Championship game. But now I think they're going to have to hit the reset button and kind of redirect where they want to go, or just get younger. Simple as that. But we'll go ahead and start off with the total cap space via Spotrac. Of course, once again, I'm going to continue to say it every video. It's their site. Don't be mad at me if the numbers are slightly off. But basically, if you estimate the total amount of cap space for the Jacksonville Jaguars at this moment, it is negative 1.5 million. Technically, when you look at it, it's like negative 1.448 something. But I just rounded it to 1.5 million. In the negatives. So they have negative cap space. That's not good for a team that's picking in the top 10. You'd like to at least have 20 million. But like I said, have no fear. GM, General Manager, JJ Domination's here. We got this, man. We got this. This is what we do. We've done it for a few videos now. And we have our notable free agents first before we get to the cuts. So there's only 2 notable free agents I really noted, and that is going to be edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue and wide receiver Keelan Cole. So for Yannick Ngakoue, listen, get a good edge rusher these days, you're going to have to pay anywhere between 15 to 20 million. I'd classify Yannick Ngakoue as a pretty damn good pass rusher. So he's probably going to get somewhere between 15 to 17 million. It wouldn't surprise me, at least, if that's what he got. But the Jaguars, it sounds like they may have to end up franchise tagging him, but hopefully with the moves that we make, it'll be some money cleared up to sign him long term. And then also Keelan Cole, the cool thing about him is he is a restricted free agent, so it'll be pretty easy for them to bring him back compared to Yannick Ngakoue, who's going to have a large market in free agency because he is a premier pass rusher in this league. Probably one that, obviously he's not on the level of some of the more notable guys across the league like Khalil Mack, Chandler Jones, TJ Watt, who has surged recently, Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter. He's not on that level, but he's the next tier down. You know what I'm saying? So he's pretty close to those guys. But now we move on to potential roster cuts. And the first one is going to be defensive tackle Marcel Darius. Now, you actually saved $20 million by cutting Marcel Darius. I'm not paying $20 million for a defensive tackle unless his name's Aaron Donald. If your name is not Aaron Donald and you don't play like Aaron Donald, you're not getting $20 million to be an interior defensive lineman. You are crazy. You're tripping. Your pharmacist must have gave you the wrong drug, buddy, because that shit ain't happening. You're going to have to cut him for $20 million. It just, financially, it has to happen. Every video, it seems like we're talking about a cut that just makes the most sense across the league. This definitely is one that I could see coming a mile away. And if you guys don't remember, last year the Jaguars cut, several players to clear up 35 million-ish. I remember they cut Malik Jackson and saved a ton of money. And they cut a few other players as well to clear up money to bring in Nick Foles, which unfortunately we can't cut Nick Foles because then we will be in cap space hell, because the dead cap hit on that is ridiculous compared to his actual cap hit. I think you lose $14 million by releasing Nick Foles, so that ain't happening. We're trying to gain money here. We ain't trying to lose anything. Another cut, this one is a little controversial, and I wouldn't be upset if it didn't happen because he's a hell of a player, and that's defensive lineman Calais Campbell. You actually save $15 million by releasing him. Similar to what we talked about, though, with Russell Okung, the offensive lineman for the Chargers. You could release him and restructure the contract. It's been done before, and I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be a like a big deal if it were to happen this time around, but $15 million for like a 34, 35-year-old defensive lineman, that's tough. I know he's playing at a high level still. I mean, he just went to the Pro Bowl for whatever that's worth to people out there, but damn, that's just a lot of money, and again, we're in the business of saving money. You want to have options if you're the Jaguars. You don't want to feel like you're limited, in terms of what you could do financially, and by being negative in the cap, you are everything that associates with the word limited. You're screwed. So we're going to release Calais Campbell. Another player we're going to cut is cornerback DJ Hayden. He saves $6 million. He's a nickel corner. There's plenty of those on the market. There's plenty of those in the draft. You don't have to pay $6 million unless it's an elite nickel corner like Chris Harris. I'm just saying, like, you shouldn't have to unless he's elite like Chris Harris at the nickel corner position. So yeah, release him, get him off the books. Another player we're going to be releasing is wide receiver Marquise Lee. He saves roughly $5.25 million. Unfortunately for Marquise Lee, like, I hate to do that, to be honest, because injuries have kind of plagued his career. He's actually a pretty talented player, but you wouldn't know it because he's never on the field. He's blossomed a few times. He's kind of shown like that he could be a very good player, not like a stud elite receiver, but he's proven he could be pretty good, in the league and have a home for years to come. But just injuries, man. Injuries have killed his career up to this point, and maybe releasing him will give him like a fresh start somewhere, which could be beneficial for a guy like Marquise Lee. And the final cut is going to be defensive tackle Avery Jones, saving $4 million with that move right there. Another interior defensive lineman. He's really not all that good. Well, he's good, but he's not like, oh my God, I have to give him $4 million good. You know what I mean? So we'll just go ahead and release him, clear up some extra money to try to make a few extra moves. Now, if we look at the new cap total after all those cuts, the amount that the Jacksonville Jaguars will have is going to be $48.75 million. That is a $50.25 million increase. That's crazy. We cut 5 players to clear up a little over $50 million. That is insane. And it's something that this team could do in real life. I mean, last year they cut like 4 or 5 players to save over $30 million. They used that money to go get Nick Foles, which it ain't looking too good now. But when you're able to get off that Nick Foles, when you're able to get off the Nick Foles contract, I'm sure they'll be able to, and they'll do it. But yeah, $48.75 million entering free agency, and only 2 free agents you have to bring back. One of them's going to be hard, the other one not really. But we'll go ahead and talk about potential free agent targets. One of those, of course, is going to be a player that's already on their team currently, and that's edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, he's going to cost a lot of money, but maybe by clearing up all this money, it leaves the door open for a long-term extension, because at this point, all you can really do is franchise tag him, and you put yourself in even a deeper hole. But if you clear up all this money, you're talking about the potential of having a long-term extension for an edge rusher that you have seen blossom and turn into something really special in Yannick Ngakoue. And he's a hell of a player. He's another speed rusher that this team could add, or have, I should say, because they already have him. But adding him back to the team with Josh Allen, I mean, it just creates for a lot of different looks you can throw out defensively. And, of course, having 2 speed rushers like that on the edge, I mean, that's a lot for a tackle to handle, a left tackle and a right tackle, that being. Another potential free agent is tight end Eric Ebron. I wanted to mix it up with the tight ends. I mean, the last video we had, like, the Chargers getting Hunter Henry, trying to keep him in-house. I don't know if Austin Hooper realistically would be a play to the Jacksonville Jaguars, so I decided to go with Eric Ebron. To me, it makes the most sense. I'm sure this team will want a more receiving-style tight end, and Eric Ebron fits that. To me, Austin Hooper's a little bit more balanced, but he's definitely a better receiver than blocker, whereas Hunter Henry he's both. I mean, he's a really good blocker and a really good receiver when healthy. The problem is he ain't healthy. And I think for Eric Ebron, it's 2 things. One, the opportunity to play the Colts twice a year. I think that will weigh heavy on his decision. if this team does decide to go after him. And number two, again, a safety net for Gardner Minshew. They don't really have that tight end that's really filling in that void as like the security blanket and the safety valve for Gardner Minshew. They have Leonard Fournette at running back. That's it. And he's not even the greatest receiver out of the backfield either. So getting Eric Ebron, yeah, he does have a little bit of a drop concern. I'll be honest, he does. It's kind of plagued him his whole career. But if he's having one of those games where he's on fire, like, there's going to be a game where he has like 10 receptions for Jacksonville, and it's going to be crazy when that happens, if he does go, of course. The third potential free agent target is going to be defensive tackle Jordan Phillips. A lot of people probably don't know who Jordan Phillips is, so I'll fill you in. He was a mid-round pick out of Oklahoma, a freak specimen of an defensive lineman, primarily the defensive tackle position, of course. He spent some time with the Miami Dolphins, really didn't break out over there, didn't really, separate himself from the competition. I think he ends up getting cut. I think he travels around for a little bit. And then he ends up with the Buffalo Bills on a one-year deal, and he's just one of those random players this year who had 10 sacks as a defensive tackle, as an interior defensive lineman. The guy had 10 sacks, and he's a freak specimen. It's actually incredible to see that he had 10 sacks and, low pressure rate, sure. Like, he didn't have, like, elite quarterback pressure like Za'Darius Smith or Nick Bosa, but getting 10 sacks as a defensive tackle is pretty impressive. I don't care who you are. That's really impressive. And he'll probably catch a pretty penny because of that, and I think Jacksonville would be an appropriate team to give him that money. Physical freak. And I didn't really like him as much coming out of Oklahoma because, as a pass rusher, he just didn't, he wasn't as skilled as an interior rusher. You know what I mean? He's a freak specimen. That's it. He really didn't have, like, the skill set to be a good, rushing defensive tackle or, like, a good pass rusher, at the D-tackle spot. So I thought primarily he'd be like a two-down player. He kind of was that, early on in his career. And he still is to an extent, but he's making the most of his two downs by getting 10 sacks, obviously. So good to see that from Jordan Phillips. Another player we're going to be looking at, another potential free agent target, is going to be defensive end / edge rusher Emmanuel Ogbah. There we go. I'm going to put it on the screen. Emmanuel Ogbah. So last offseason, he was traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Kansas City Chiefs, and he did play a good portion of the year, but he went down with an injury. Emmanuel Ogbah, pretty solid player. You're not really going to get a whole lot of, like, potential out of him at this point. He's kind of a low ceiling, high floor type of player, but he's still young. He's a great athlete, and as an edge rusher, in run defense, he does a good job setting the edge. He's a power rusher. He's got good speed. Sure, he's not going to get you a ton of sacks, but he will get some pressure, and he will set that edge and run defense. And I think, to me, it just adds a different element to Jacksonville. Maybe if you bring back Yannick Ngakoue, you have Josh Allen. Maybe you kick Emmanuel Ogbah inside at defensive tackle on some of those pass rushing downs, just to add a different element to this team, which could be very interesting. But yeah, Ogbah's one of those players who I think can be pretty good here in Jacksonville. And, maybe not statistically, but on film, like, he'll look pretty solid in my opinion. To me, like, he'd be coming in here primarily as a good run defender, but as a guy who can offer you some juice in, the pass rushing department. And then a final player we're going to talk about is cornerback Trey Waynes. I almost wanted to call him Trey Young there, but this is not the NBA. So, Trey Waynes, kind of an underwhelming start to his career with the Vikings. Like, sure, he's a solid player, but he, was drafted decently high. He was like a top 15 pick out of, what school did he go to? Was it Michigan State? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like, he just hasn't lived up to the hype, I guess you could say, or lived up to the draft pick. He's kind of a solid starter, not really a difference maker out there. But he's a fine player, and I think he will have a little bit of a market when free agency comes around, and I do like the intrigue of him going to Jacksonville, kind of refreshing his career, trying to restart it, and hoping to rejuvenate, I don't know, I'm using a bunch of big words, but basically I'm hoping he goes to Jacksonville to get a fresh start. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And With the Vikings, sure, he's solid, but the Vikings are in their own little cap space hell situation, and, I plan on doing one of their offseason videos as well, but that'll be later because we're doing it based on the draft process, of course, like where they're picking and stuff, so that'll be later on. But looking at Trey Waynes, he could be a guy that comes in here. He's a pretty good press corner, man coverage, not too bad, could use a little bit of work. Same thing with zone coverage, but he's one of those corners that likes to get handsy with you, and in this, kind of poor man's Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom scheme, he could probably be like the Byron Maxwell or Brandon Browner of the corners. He could be the handsy, aggressive corner who can kind of do a lot of different things. He's got good height, very fast as well at the cornerback position. In the NFL today, you got to have the speed to hang with some of these receivers, and he's got it, and I just think it'd be an intriguing fit. Like, I could see Jacksonville, or a team like Jacksonville, giving him like a 2-year deal to where they can like opt out in year 2 or like cut you and save a ton of money. But it'd be interesting to see how he would look elsewhere. I mean, with the Vikings, it just hasn't worked out in terms of probably what they expected versus what they got, but maybe if he goes elsewhere, he'll be pretty good. Or at least be solid. Maybe he just plays like a slightly better version than what he actually is. But let's go ahead and talk about my first round picks. If you have not seen my 2020 mock draft, it's on the channel. Our 2020 mock draft 1.0. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go check it out. But of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 2 first-round picks. They have their own at number 9 overall, and one via the Los Angeles Rams at number 20. So, with the 9th overall pick, I gave this team wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, and at pick number 20, I gave them safety Grant Delpit. To me, this fills 2 needs. One, adding a free safety. They need a free safety bad. Ronnie Harrison is more of a strong safety. They need that free safety bad. And then, of course, they need a receiver. They need receiver help. And I feel like adding a guy like Jerry Jeudy fills a need because, he can come in, be like one of the top 2 receivers on the team, let D.D. Westbrook work the slot, have DJ Chark be that deep threat, and let Jerry Jeudy just be the route running technician that he is. Let him just run routes and, create some separation like he can and just get open, make some plays for Gardner Minshew in the intermediate passing game. Let D.D. Westbrook work the short area. Let Eric Ebron kind of be your safety valve, and Leonard Fournette as well. And then let DJ Chark just burn people with that speed of his. To me, those 2 picks, like I said, they fill in a need, multiple needs. And I hope those are the picks they go with in real life because I think that'd be pretty cool. Some other positions they need to address during the draft, of course. Mainly depth. They need offensive line and defensive line depth. Their offensive line, they got their starters, but like Cam Robinson, I don't even know if he'll be here next year, like after the 2021 season, because, he's been solid, but he hasn't, been all that great of a tackle. If anything, he's kind of replaceable at this point because he just hasn't lived up to it. Now, maybe next year he just has a breakout year and emerges as a top tackle, but who knows? The chances of that. The chance of that happening aren't as good as the chance of him basically being the same player we've seen for the last few years. Defensive line depth, of course, we've cut 3 defensive linemen in this video, and we've added 2. So I think just adding another guy with a good skill set, it could add something to this defense. Primarily a defensive tackle. Maybe they're in play for a guy like Raekwon Davis. Maybe they add another pass rusher like Julian Okwara or Curtis Weaver or Terrell. Is it Terrell Lewis, right? From Alabama. I'm trying to remember his name. Yeah, somebody like that. And then, of course, they could add another wide receiver. This class has some good wide receivers. Maybe you go get another one in, the 4th round, and he ends up being pretty solid. And then, of course, running back depth. In my opinion, Raquel Armstead is fine. But Leonard Fournette's really the only guy you got. And this team definitely needs a change of pace back. Maybe a receiving back, a guy who, is shifty, can work in the open field, especially if you create separation and space for him. And can just catch the ball and do something with it out of the backfield. And then finally, defensive back depth. To me, this team could definitely use some. I'm giving them Grant Delpit, but they could use maybe another corner as well. Their starting three corners, of course, just based on how I have their offseason going, would be AJ Boye and Trey Waynes and Trey Herndon. So you could definitely do better there. So maybe they go draft a guy in like the second round, but we'll see. Second or third round maybe. But hopefully you guys enjoyed, man. I really put a lot of thought into these. It's not just like like it's not a bullshit free agency thing. It's just, this is what I want to see the teams do. This is what would make sense financially, and then for the scheme and for the team and how it's structured. So hopefully it makes sense. I do put a little, good bit of thought into this. I know I said a lot of thought, but I do put a ton of thought into this. A good bit. Doesn't really take that long for me to work on, but still, hopefully you guys enjoy it. And the next team we will be covering is the Cleveland Browns. It's going to be a train wreck, kind of like their season last year and their franchise. So, should be fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Peace out.